Monday, June the 4th, 2018, in council chambers. And first off, we will, I need a motion, please, to adopt the Committee of the Whole agenda. There's nothing else there. So Councillor King, Councillor Rhodes, we may just do AB or BA all day. Our other two councillors, Councillor Youngberg and Councillor Campbell, are at FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and that's in Halifax, so they're not back yet. So all in favor of the being adopted, thank you. First up, we have three delegations today, and our first one is an update on the South Okanagan General Hospital and Community Services. And we have Carl Meadows here, who is Interior Health Acute, am I correct? And Susan Brown, who's Interior Health Community. And they have a presentation, and they're going to come and talk about it. Now, would you like to come up to the microphone, please?
Yes.
And would you like us, if we find something that we would like to ask a question about, to interrupt you and do it then? Or, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We call it Stop in the Name of Love.
Thank you very much and welcome. We're glad to have an update on this.
Excellent. And thank you very much, Your Worship and councillors. Really appreciate the time and just coming back to visit. I think it's actually been a year since we were here last, so this will be very timely. I'm sure
you promised to come every 3 months,
yes.
Didn't you? Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. And this is just so, and one of the things is Susan and I are obviously in partnership, and as we look at that work that we're doing between community and acute, it's really probably even more advanced than it was a year ago. So I'll start off. Next slide, please. Are you like my van?
Yes, I am.
Good, you did it. So this is just to highlight that the South Okanagan General Hospital emergency is staffed by local family physicians and part-time emergency department physicians from other areas. So that's just a reminder about that. We have 18 publicly funded beds. And we continue to make improvements at South Okanagan General Hospital that we'll highlight in this presentation, and that the staff and physicians provide excellent care to their patients. In fact, we just had a lovely letter from a family that came from the East Coast, and they had an incident, and they actually wrote it. It got published in Fraser Health's or Interior Health's newsletter they had just received outstanding care. So those are always great things to hear. Next slide. So currently we are doing the emergency and triage and reception renovation. That's currently in the planning stage. Although we had people come and give us estimates, it's now in the drawings. They're working through the drawing phase, and I know that we're going to be sharing those once we're done with you, Sue, and with our Oliver team. And then First Hospital in North America integrate PharmaNet Meditech in the emergency, which is really making great news, which is outstanding. So what that means is when they go on to Meditech, which is the information management system, they now can pull up the client's all the prescriptions that they have on PharmaNet. So it's really exciting. So they don't have to look at paper copies so that's really exciting. And then telemental health collaboration we're doing. And that's where we can do assessments of people without physically having them in the room. And then the capacity plan, since we saw you last year, we actually have a capacity plan. Remember the controversy about the beds? Mm-hmm. Well, it was probably less about the beds and more that we actually didn't have a plan around, like when the hospital has 16 clients in it, and we know that we're going to be in congestion, how do we call in staff? What is the plan? If we needed more than 18 beds, where would they be? We have moved to more single patient rooms for infection control and staff safety. We've now, which is really great. And so that's now set in place. And actually the community is also part of that plan. So at what point do they pull from us?
And is there not a sort of a flex room with 3 beds that can be
Correct.
used?
Yeah. And that was one of our rooms without windows. And now we've increased our ceiling fans or ceiling lifts in our hospital. So for again, staff safety, that's been really a great improvement. Increased security, and now we have our patient advisory council, which has been formed.
Can you expand a little bit on increased security? Does that mean if we bring someone up with the RCMP, they can leave them there and RCMP can come back? Or what's expand on increased security?
Well, we have security there, so we have. I can't remember off top what time they are, but it's basically not. If people come from corrections, they come with their own team, right? So it's really around expanded. We've improved some egress areas, like for our doors and all that.
Oh, okay.
But also we also have security there as well. I just don't know the times. Yeah.
CJ?
Just wondering about the, excuse me, the renovations. Did you say that they've started, or you're just looking for
The planning has started, yeah.
Do you think that'll have any impact on your staff's ability to look after the triage part of their work there? Or?
You mean during renovation?
Yeah.
That will be part of the planning, right? Because we're going to be running our business just like we do every day, right? So we will have to have a transition plan during construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that trailer that was there last year that came in, there was one that you can get from, not Interior Health, but I think it's the medical.
Yeah, I think we don't have any plans to bring in any kind of third party or equipment, but what we'll do, much like we're doing in Penticton with our renovation, is that we might have temporary holding areas or stuff during the construction, but again, that will be part of the project planning, right? Where do we want to be? Where are we right now? What are we going to have to do in the interim to make sure that the flow continues at the hospital?
Okay.
Okay, next slide. So again, we've got new ceiling lifts and Lucas chest compressor, which has been donated by the auxiliary. Please don't ask me what this is, but it sounds really fantastic. And then one new touchscreen computer for emergency. We've got bariatric, which are for larger people. So for staff safety, commode and shower chair, again donated by our wonderful auxiliary. We've increased with IV pumps, vital sign machine, cardiac arrest simulation equipment for nurse educator, and the oxygen upgrade. So this is just demonstrating we're continuing to invest in the hospital. Next slide, please. So this just, the red line in below just kind of identifies our occupancy. And the occupancy, if you can see, it's below 90%. It's really been mainly because we've really been able to get the right clients into the right service at the right time. We still are really working with our community to make focus on our alternate level of care clients. And we've been working really hard in that to make sure that their length of stay is very short. In the future, we want those clients to be waiting from their homes, so we're still in that period of really identifying that on any given day, we still got one client waiting for residential at South Okanagan General Hospital, and generally 3 that are alternate level of care waiting for either a community service or another service. So, and we've been working hard, and that's what's helped us with our occupancy.
Carl, can I ask, some of the lines there, like the 2007-8, which is the base, has like kind of gone off the chart in one area.
Yeah.
And even last year, it was sort of higher. What do you attribute to the red line, which is fairly steady now? It doesn't have any peaks and valleys. That's one question. Why is that much lower than the others? And the period that you've got at the bottom, are those equal to weeks or months, or what is the period there?
Months. And in a health authority, we have 13 periods in a calendar, in a year. And it starts on April 1st and ends at March 31st the following year.
Okay.
So there's a few factors. Our alternate level of care clients and clients waiting for assessment to go to resident, or who have been assessed and go to residential, their numbers used to be a lot more. So that speaks to our work with the community and them actually pulling those clients to the proper service, whether it's palliative care in the home or home support, or that's definitely been attributed to that. And sometimes physicians. So we in Penticton and South Okanagan wouldn't be any different. We have sometimes physicians who are outliers. That the average admission in Penticton is about, or across Fraser or Interior Health is about 15 to 16%. Some are outliers, so when physician X works, they could have an admission rate of 22%. So there's not many, but South Okanagan actually has a very low admission rate, but a very high volume of non-acute patients, and you'll see that coming up. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just, I had a clicker, those things with the little red dots. So I'll have to use my finger on this one. I'll have to
But
walk
don't
up.
touch the screen.
No, I will
Like,
not.
yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble. So, and I'm not blocking Andrew as well. So this is the average. So CTAS 4s and 5s are defined as your ability to wait for emergency care.
Okay.
So 4s and 5s would be classed as walk-in clinic-like clients that are not, number one, CTAS emergency care is what we call LLTO, or life, limb, threatened organ. You need assessment right now.
Yes. So
it just kind of gives you the range. You can see across Interior Health, the average is around 46-45% of clients that are visiting our emergency departments are walk-in clinic-ish. And you can see here in South Okanagan General Hospital, we've made an improvement, but it's between 66 and 70%. So that means 6 or 7%, or 7 out of 10 people that are walking in could have had that service likely somewhere else in a clinic. And it's no blaming of anybody, was there space in the physician's office to access that? Did they need some emergency lab care? Were they sent to the hospital by the physician? And there's a question mark to get those tests because there's a wraparound service, right? And so that just paints a picture. So when you look at South Okanagan last year and the year before, about between 807 and 978 were actually emergencies. The rest were less so.
So can you explain what urgent care and non-urgent care, what the difference is for those two?
So urgent care would be like somebody that is having, for example, an episode, like let's say they have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and they can't be managed at home and they're having what we call an exacerbation of that condition, and they may not be able to breathe. That would be urgent, but they're not going to die, right? They may have their puffers, and that's just one of the many examples.
Okay.
And so, so that's the difference between emergency care, meaning the time is of essence, and you need to get in.
And non-urgent care is just something
you
that
fell, you might have a fracture.
Okay.
You're not going to die.
So
In fact, one of the pictures with our foundation, they had this picture of this person sitting there on a chair, and their child had a little teddy bear, and the dad was holding his arm, that was obviously injured, and it said emergency care, and I thought, oh God, no, that's not what we want.
Yeah.
We want them to go to a doctor's office and get sutured, but we don't
Right.
need them to get, taking up, emergency time, right?
okay.
So next, and again, even the assessment that you're doing with Colliers, right now, is that, I got asked the question, what would be the ideal situation? I said, well, we already have it. It's called South Okanagan General Hospital. People go there because there's wraparound services, pharmacy, all lab, you can access all those things, right? So that's one of the good things, and one of the things that's presenting the numbers as they do. Next slide, please. So this is, again, just a different way of looking at it. So when you look at non-urgent care, out of a hospital that sees 18,000 visits, and a very small percentage are out-of-towners. In fact, out-of-towners are actually revenue generators for us, but it's a very small proportion. So if you think of Penticton has about 36,000 visits a year. South Okanagan General Hospital has 18,000. So you can see 12 to 11,000 are non-urgent visits to the emerge department. Okay, next slide, please. And this and this is our length of stay. So this is, again, where the community has really been working extremely hard. We've gone from 6.7, this means actual length of stay, and so the ALC is alternate level of care, so non-acute people. So we've gone from 6.7 in 15-16 to 5.6 length of stay, which is just outstanding, and really speaking to the hard work that the community is doing. My colleague here, Susan. Next slide. So I will hand this off now, the community portion, to Susan.
Okay.
So good morning. Carl has talked a couple of times about the fact that people often do better at home, that we really want people in the hospital when they need to be in the hospital, but people often recover better at home. They do better aging in place at home. Often palliative care is better provided at home. So we're looking at how we can strengthen our community services so that we can have people in the hospital who need that appropriate care, but people are going to get the best care possible that they can within their home community. We know that recuperating at home, even following surgery after a certain number of days, is better done at home. People are more motivated to get up, to move around, and they're more comfortable with family and familiar surroundings. We know that seniors who are admitted to the hospital recover much more slowly than younger people. It's disorienting, it's noisy, and we have a bad habit of having infectious diseases in hospitals. So it can be an unsafe place for people who are not ill.
Susan, can I just ask?
Sure.
I know that you're certainly recommending people recover better at home. Do we feel that the services that are provided by home care are adequate? I mean, we get the stories once in a while about, well, nobody came to visit me, or the person came and didn't stay long enough to do anything, that type of thing. Is that being looked at on a continuing basis? Or?
So for a number of people would look back at what home support services used to be quite a few years ago. And there was a change probably well over 20 years ago within British Columbia that reduced the number of services that is provided from home support, and looking to other agencies and services that exist within the community to provide some of those other services. So our home support services are often very short. For some people, though, they might be there 4 times a day, so that they need services at various times throughout the day. We know that we have a shortage of home support workers. We're working very hard with the college, with our recruiting department, to see how we can improve our attraction and retention of home support workers, which would allow us greater flexibility in providing that care at home.
So the community paramedic that has just been hired recently in our community, do they work with you, and is that that seems to me a positive way to look at things?
That's a very positive way
Yeah.
to look at things. We've had community paramedic program now in Princeton for a couple of years, in Karameas, and just starting in Osoyoos. As a matter of fact, I'm coming back tomorrow for a community meeting about the community paramedic program. And we've seen very positive results in the other communities, and we're quite excited to see what will be here.
Thank you.
Okay, and so next slide. So just wanting to talk a bit about how communities can help, and I think Osoyoos is very aware of that with the work that you've been doing with the consulting firm right now, and the input that you're getting from other community members around how all of us can work collaboratively to ensure the best care. We really want to help identify what the compelling story is for Osoyoos and Oliver. What are the things that make it good for people to come here, for physicians to want to practice medicine here, for everything from home support workers to physiotherapists to nurses to want to practice in our area. We really need that living recruitment and retention plan. Oftentimes, recruitment is felt to be something that you need to focus on when we're short of physicians or short of other health professionals. The reality is that we really need to be working at it all the time so that we have an ongoing recruitment and retention plan. We want to be able to keep people here. We also want to be able to respond as our communities grow and change so that we aren't all of a sudden finding ourselves short of the professionals that we need. We really look to communities to help us with assistance with locum housing. It's one of our really big challenges when we have short-term staff coming in, especially during the summer. As you're well aware, it's very challenging to get the accommodations that are needed. And then as we move physicians and other health professionals into the community, we really look to the communities to help us welcome these people, make them at home, help them settle into the community, not just the physician, but their spouse, their children, and wanting to be in Osoyoos and seeing that this is a place where they want to live and work. And I think next slide takes us to questions in general.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McCorduff. We all know the importance of your nursing staff in our total healthcare dynamic, and just wondering if there's any staff cuts planned for this year at all, particularly in the nursing component or the staffing levels with that.
So I'll speak to the community and then let Carl speak to acute. And what I can assure you in community is we're looking to grow our nursing resources and our other community resources. So we're developing plans that say how can we work differently, how can we increase our resources.
Yeah. And I can speak. So the answer is yes. What they did, we had what they call a nursing review committee. So we asked that South Okanagan General Hospital be reviewed. It's a collective agreement issue. It's a process. It's called the Nursing Review Committee. We did get acknowledged that they would take us on around the process. So the BC Nurses Union and the employer sit and go through a very formalized process. It was reviewed. The site got $190,000 additional. And they're focusing on nursing resources. So one of the challenges that was put forward to be fixed was the nursing ratio. I don't know if you remember, but the night nursing was 1-9. So we brought that down in the review. I don't sit at the review. I have it once you put it out. Be careful what you wish for because you've now got spotlights on it. So there was agreement that the nursing ratio was too low. So now it's going to be 1-6 on both days and nights. And the care aides, which we never really had a solid care aide roster. We did have some, but some weren't at work, and we didn't have something stabilized. So in that nursing review, the money to top that new model up came from the care aides. So there was one that we aren't laying anybody off, because one of the challenges that we have, and this goes to how we work together, I don't know where Susan is there, but remember, care aides are really a valuable resource in areas where their service and their skill set is required. Community health workers, residential care. So if you remember, I said 4 clients any given day are ultimate level of care. So we've increased the nursing staff. So that means that that nurses will be able to do more skills. Care aides are really there as an important service, but they're generally there for personal care and for one-to-one care, for like if somebody's violent and they need to be, but they're actually, we start competing with one another. So really their best fit is residential and in the community where they're desperately needed. So what we've done, one of the misnomers, and this afternoon I'm having a meeting with the staff, there was a belief when this change came, and again, the site got an additional $190,000 in a context where everybody's fighting for money, so we did get an increase in resources. But one of the challenges is that, the staff didn't think that they could phone in extra staff. So I said, well, why would you think that? Of course, you're going to run your business. We're going to run the service just like we did before. Instead of calling in care aides, you're going to call in LPNs and RNs as you need, right? So
So just one thing, my neighbor, I just met her yesterday. She just bought a house here, and guess what? She's an RN. She's starting today at South Okanagan General. So I said, yes.
Yes. So, and just to put it, because I know we like to compare to Penticton. Penticton doesn't have care aides in their acute. These are acute care hospitals, and because a care aide cannot assist somebody with an IV or a PICC line, as the clientele should be acute. That's the services in nursing that we need, and that's what the review told us.
Good. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on CBC.com on their news website this morning. They had a interesting article about the most respected careers in Canada right now. Nursing was number one. Veterinarians were second, and doctors were third. And the least respected career choice in all of Canada is politicians. They were ranked number 20. They were at the bottom.
Well, for the record, I'm a registered nurse. Are you still a registered nurse? So, yes. So, again, just to summarize it, we want to make sure our acute care hospitals have the right skill set. And for us to have care aides, just remember we're poaching from residential, which is adjoined to the hospital. So we feel that this is a better model. It's not going to limit us to say if you need workload and we've got, let's say, 21 people in the building. Of course, we've got a capacity plan now. You're going to phone in staff. The good news, as I see it, is that we have more stable nursing lines. We've actually never had a regular stable nursing line because we've had crappy rotations, right? So now that we do that, we will actually have nurses that more critical mass to phone in to help us when we need nursing support. So that's great.
Thank you. I had one more question.
Yeah.
Recently, we heard on the news a week or so ago that the provincial government had identified that they were hiring 200 more
Nurse practitioner.
doctors.
Oh.
Was it doctors? Yes. And that there were several places in the province on a map that were identified as needing assistance, and one of them was the South Okanagan-Similkameen. Susan, do you know how does that affect us, and what does it mean?
So the province has embarked on what they're calling primary and community care transformation. We've been leading up to this for a number of years with various projects. They've tied pilot projects. They've had communities looking at specific areas. They're now, as of this year, moving forward within local health authorities. Each local health authority can put forward an expression of interest to go forward to apply for funding. And in that application for funding, there's a significant amount of work in developing a plan, looking at what are the current resources, what's the current population, what's our gap. Okay. We put forward an expression of interest in the South Okanagan, and we're accepted in the first round, so we're one of the first 5 communities. Good. We chose to focus on Penticton and Summerland for a start, and that our plan needs to be into the ministry by August 8th, and then we will have determined what is the funding that is needed to address the gap that currently exists. We have every expectation that we'll be moving through this with Oliver Soyuz, Karamias, and Princeton. We just haven't determined a time frame for that. The province is also encouraging us through this process to look at different funding models for physicians. So that gives us new opportunities that haven't always existed in the past to be able to look at how we can fund physicians to work in various communities.
Well, thank you very much for coming and explaining this and allowing us to ask questions. It is an interesting time, and certainly Asuyas is being very involved in looking at all of these issues right now. But we are happy to have you here anytime, maybe not a year from now. Okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, no, I appreciate it.
Thank
It
you
was
very
a
much.
really pleasure. Thank you very much, everybody.
Our next presentation is Gina Pereira. Gina, would you like to come up to the microphone, please?
Hello, everyone. I remember some of you guys from 2013. My name's Gina Pereira. I ran as Miss O'Seas back in 2013, and that's when I got to know some of you. So I'm here today because I was chosen to represent Canada at the Miss Universe pageant. So there was 650 candidates or applicants, and they chose 30 of us from Western Canada to be representatives. So I'm here today to ask for a sponsorship from the town to help me go to Toronto, represent our town, and represent Canada. And if I make it to the Miss Universe Canada pageant and I win, then I go on to Miss Universe, which is the big pageant that you see on TV. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations for
Thank
for being chosen out of 600. That's pretty amazing. So when is it that you are planning to go, and what are you, or do you have a particular ask from council? We don't make decisions today, but we certainly appreciate having your ask and your input, because it's on Granicus, so it'll be on live streaming. So
It will be.
Go ahead.
So I applied in January, and I found out in April that I made it through. And I've been going to meetings in Vancouver once a month since end of March. So my next one is in the next couple of weeks, and I will go there. I will train. They teach me how to talk. They teach me how to represent myself, not only like in a community base, but now globally, which is really neat. So that was like another training portion. So I've been paying in increments and getting sponsors from like around town as well. And I wanted to do locally and not so much like big companies as well, because I think that going to Toronto and being like, this is OC's and you should come here because, and this is like the small community that has now represented me as Miss OC's to now Miss Canada, and I want to showcase everyone that as well. So I'm just asking for just a little bit of money or just a little bit of portions. I have about $2,500 more to go, and that will include transportation to Toronto, my hotels, security guards when I'm there, my food. They really take care of everything. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Did you have a question, Councillor Rhodes?
Well, you look very comfortable standing in front of a microphone, so yeah, it's a good start.
A few years ago, I was not.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the CES Ambassador Program, I wouldn't be standing here today.
Well, you've come a long ways. Mayor McCordoff kind of touched on it a little bit. Could you be specific about the amount? It's so much easier for us to deal with it if we know what your request is and how much that would be.
I was looking for about $1,000 to help, just so that would help me to have a bit of a portion to do the training and to go to Vancouver and to Toronto. I'm not asking for like the full portion because I know that is a lot, and I also would like to grab like other people from the community as well.
Yeah. So is $2,500 your shortfall, or that's the total amount?
No, that's what I'm shortfalled right now.
Oh, okay.
And I've already paid $1,000, so into training fees. So
And what is the deadline?
they want it pretty soon.
Oh, I see.
But I have until the end of June.
Okay.
Okay.
And
so
I go
another
to
month.
Toronto for 10 days in August.
Okay. Good. Any other concerns? Could we have a look at
Ooh.
Mr. Manco, would we be able to look at what has happened in the past, what we normally do, whether this would be possible or not?
Well, it could.
We have.
My light's on, but it's not.
I think you need a new microphone.
Yes, we could do that. It's just a matter of whether council wants to deal with it for decision this afternoon or at the next meeting.
I would say this afternoon.
Oh, and I was going to say the next meeting because we're missing 2 people, but I'm not sure. What do you think, Councillor?
Well, you
Rhodes?
can add it to the agenda. It's just closed. Just closed, you can't add to the agenda. I don't know. I'm just being told we can't, so
We
it would
can't
have
add
to be
it
the
for this
22nd,
afternoon.
18th, yeah.
All right.
Well, the 18th would give you enough time
Yes.
to
Yes.
react. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll do it
Okay.
next meeting.
Good.
Okay.
So, thank you very much. And thank you, Gina, and we'll have a look at this, and good luck with your efforts to raise money and in your quest to get this high honor. So good for you.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was nice seeing everyone again. So thank you.
you.
Have a good day.
Okay, see if that works. The next a delegation that we have is Mr. Durat. Mr. Durat, would you like to come up to the microphone, please, and give us an idea about what?
I'll put this here for later on.
Okay.
I hope you're interested in that. Esteemed town councillors, I have something to hand out for each of you.
And
But
could
I'm here to present not only myself or
Yep.
my wife.
wait until you get to the microphone because this is on Granicus. Thank you. And could you give us your name and address, please, when you get back to the microphone?
I thought I had 6. I have another one. I think there's 2. Yeah, my name is Jacob de Raad from 8921 122nd Avenue. I'm an out-of-towner. The purpose of this presentation is to obtain your kind cooperation and that of the water councillors and your staff, so that about a dozen of people, property owners who know about me standing here before you and have given me their moral support already, may obtain some level of equal treatment regarding water to their properties, namely the restoration of irrigation water, which they stand to lose this year or already lost last year. The situation of my wife and me, namely a request for a new domestic connection to our house at the town's expense, is somewhat the opposite, but part of the same problem situation that needs to be fixed for the common good and, more importantly, for equality before the law. Now, what are the details? Now, Madam Mayor, you live in the rural area in Area 9, and you may be even more interested to know about this. The town of Osoyo's contract with Superior last year and with Grizzly last year happened, and they served properties north of 92nd Avenue, particular Superior, which are zoned RS1, and their water comes from the town of Osoyo's, who is the purveyor of water, and they pay a partial irrigation charge and a residential unit charge. So for years and years they've got 2 types of water, or 1 type of water for 2 uses from the same pipe. Now, under the current contract for the installation of water mains by Superior on the rest of 87th Avenue and, like ours, and also 100th Avenue, these parcels are zoned IAG1, and they also pay a partial irrigation charge and a residential unit charge, but the situation is a little bit different. My perusal of signed and sealed engineering drawings on the hood of the contractor's pickup truck on the 19th of May showed that the adjustments to current water connections of these parcels did not seem to be handled in a fair and equitable manner. In some cases, the parcel would be allowed to keep its existing water connection, as you can see on the left-hand side of those things, because they had to. But in other cases, the partial irrigation water connection would be removed because there was only 1 connection. And that's on the right-hand side of the sketch you have there. And new domestic connections were proposed for all properties, large and small, so it appears that some would lose their irrigation water completely without having a say in this. Now, Mr. Jim Dinwoodie, soon after that, confirmed to me that yes, on last year's contract, some properties now have 2 connections and others have 1. But they were still built for 2018. Most of the houses that were built before 1990 had 2 connections. Now that's when Solid ran the system. But the houses that were built after 1990 only got 1 single connection. For what? For irrigation water, for which they were built, and for domestic water, for which they were built. And now they lose the 1. And that's not correct. But even some older houses, and I mean much older houses, only have a single connection. In one case, on Grizzly's contract, the owner did not even realize that she has been using that domestic water to irrigate her whole property, but she's still being billed for a partial irrigation charge. Now that is Miss D'Agostino, at the top end, Jerry Lynn, maybe you know her by that name, on the top end of 100th Avenue. In another case, the owner requested a brand new domestic connection so that the existing connection can remain to serve irrigation water. Now that's my wife and me. Is that logical? I'll return to that. And this thing seems to be inequitable. Why? Because having irrigation water has been seen as an almost intrinsic right or a privilege for any agricultural property. Taking this right away without even any prior consultation by whoever is improper, even in terms of the Dublin Principles. Now, the Dublin Principles changed the focus from universal rights to water to the economic value of water, and they were passed by the United Nations in Dublin, Ireland, and Canada is a signatory to that. Now, if you Google it, you'll find that there's 2 types of Dublin declarations. Dublin Principle. The one has to do with combating alcoholism in Ireland. It's not that one. It's the real one by the United Nations. The properties that have already lost their irrigation water last year and want it back are the Brings at 10005 87th Street, the Edwardses at 10215 87th Street, also representing late Mrs. Edwards at 10209 87th Street. 3 houses north of 104th Avenue, 10409, 10417, 10435. And I think the people are surnamed Holtz and Johnson, and I didn't get the third people yet, their surname. And a few others who I have not spoken to on Saturday afternoon. One of them is a rental. The lady says, I don't know what water this property has, but I know I was connected. I say, well, take a sample from your tap in the kitchen and your tap outside the house and compare the water and taste the water and smell the water and see what it looks like, turbidity and things like that. Then you know whether you have 1 or 2 connections, or they haven't come back to me yet. And there could be more on 100th Avenue and Highway 97. I think a total of about 12 people. And the properties that will lose their irrigation this year are 2 houses just north of Rick Jones's house on the right-hand side, numbered 12219. The gentleman died last year, and 12221. And also the house of John and Monica Boyer at 12488. So that's 3 property houses at least. Now, there may be some logic in determining why some properties will keep their irrigation water and others why they will not. That pragmatic idea rubs me up the wrong way. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and that's why I'm here. And the statement, the reason given, you will still be able to irrigate with the domestic water doesn't make sense at all, and also not because in future the domestic water will be treated, and also that water meters will be installed. Now, why I requested in Dinwoodie that the existing water connection to our property remain is I believe we have a strange situation, and that is shown in the documents you have in your parcel. I see there's pages 17 to 35. I believe that the pipe that we have is a different one from what is called the water main. This is, I think I explained this already. Are you happy with that? This is our situation. Our parcel got this.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Yes.
Okay. The property that we now own got this pipe up to the house, through the basement. This is our irrigation water, both sides. And we have a PVC valve in the house, and that is where our domestic starts. This pipe was paid for by Mrs. Stanley, who owned the property.
How long have you owned the property?
5 years this week.
Okay.
We moved in the 14th. But we bought the house knowing that we had irrigation water. I mean, the notary told us. Then in 2004, our neighbors who have this bed and breakfast, the big Del Rey bed and breakfast, they saw the town of Osoyoos building another water main there next to this one and continuing up to the highway. And those are the as-built drawings I have not yet received. I had a request for access to records. I haven't seen them yet. This is a second 50 millimeter pipe from here, from the bottom, from 87, Byron Jones's house, and that went all the way there, to the highway. My neighbor and us are not on the same water, up to now. Sometimes the valve was closed, sometimes the valve was closed here. The valve was closed there, he's out of water. The valve there was closed, we're out of water. So, I believe that this pipe belonged to Mrs. Stanley. We bought it with the property. And that is why I asked the town, well, I don't want that one to be connected as a domestic because I would lose the irrigation water. And the town was saying, well, sure. The suggestion was made to Jim in the meeting I had with the drawings, the stuff I got, these papers from the access of records request, that, yes, this is probably our pipe. And he said, well, why doesn't the town connect it to the house, to the kitchen part, and then we can keep this as irrigation water? And there's our domestic connection. Bob's your uncle, if you know the English term. But he said that needed council decision.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Pereira and then Councillor Rhodes.
That property there was never on the old salt system.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. That property was water come out of the pond down below, and it was just transferred to the town last year. And your house was on a well.
No,
yes, your house was on a well. And then when they applied, the well went bad or whatever, they applied for water, but not for only the house water.
This property paid both charges since 1985.
I lived there
The town
as a
records
neighbor.
will show that.
Yeah. Well, I would direct.
I'm just
You own this property, right?
Yes, I did. And my parents won on the other side. I was raised there.
Can I mention one interesting thing here, that the estimate by the solid actually is wrong. I want to refer to you to exhibit.
Solid has
page
not
1.
existed for 30 years, am I correct? It was 30 years ago, Solid disbanded,
I know.
and the town took over looking after the water. So you need to know, Mr. Durant, that Interior Health has been very involved in this, requesting that we do these upgrades to protect people, and that is maybe not something that you had thought about. Am I correct?
I have.
Councillor Pereira? And then Councillor Rhodes, you had a question.
Thank you, Mayor McCorduff. Jacob, I wanted to comment on the water metering situation that you brought up. You and I had a previous conversation, and it appeared to me that it was a bit of a issue, but it might be a bad choice of words, but we did a water conservation plan through a consultant a short time ago, and we are always looking for ways of not only conserving water, but using our water properly and correctly. And at the top of the list of suggestions so that we could make everything better in our community was water metering. Water metering always comes with the threat of, well, I'm going to be paying lots of money for my water now because I have a water meter, but that's not always true. It's an incredible tool for water conservation. It is the best tool. And there are many, many people, not only in our community, but in the rural areas surrounding our community, that abuse that, and hopefully when we introduce water meters into our community, it will have the desired effect, and that is water conservation in our community. And when you bring it into situations like this, it's not really relevant at this point because we have not progressed that part of our plan very much. We have a little bit, and there could be no knowledge, and everything that you think and hear about water metering is kind of conjecture at this point.
I understand, Councillor Lewis.
And you can, just my words, you can hear that there was no question in there. It was more of a comment about that particular part of it.
What I would like to answer, if I may, through the chair.
Yes, and then, Mr. Durrett, we do have another meeting, so I'm just wondering if you could wrap up quickly. And we do not make decisions here, but we do have people here that have certainly listened to your presentation.
I am not against having potable water. I'm not against water metering there, but at the moment, my house is not connected. That's my problem. And I believe that the town of Osoyoos has decided to install new water mains. This means that no water user should be out of pocket for any connection, whether for irrigation or domestic water, even for a new on-site connection. We are quite content to keep our irrigation water as it is, by way of this 1985 connection, which was made for both. And one of the papers that you have shows that Mrs. Stanley had to become a member of the irrigation district. Contrary to what Mr. Moreira says, she had to pay for it. And this can be done by way of the pipe, fine, domestic water, whatever, but this is, I believe, to remain as is. And I would like to read you Principle 4 from Dublin, the Dublin Principles. Water has an economic value in all its competing uses and should be recognized as an economic good. And comment on this, the emphasis on Principle 4 of the Dublin Principles on the economic value of water, rather than water as a universal right, which I've tried to mention, has been and still is highly contested in many circles. Water legislation that has been introduced by different countries since 1992 has mostly adopted a compromise between the two viewpoints, and Mr. Wood from Bill Wood from Oliver, which I spoke to last week, told me, yes, Canada's water law has recently changed.
And it has, and definitely it's being worked on. Mr. Emanko, you had a comment?
So just for clarity, you're asking, I'm not sure what your ask is, but I think I know what it is. You say you should not be out of pocket for your domestic service. You want the town to pay, or the town as a water purveyor to pay for installing water from your property line to your house?
This has been installed already.
But from your property, you want the town to pay for that?
Yes.
That's your ask?
And now the contractor told me that he cannot work on private property. Well, the very next day I saw him working on Rich Jones' property, on private property.
Okay, let me just, maybe for clarity, he was probably, our contractor probably can't work under our contract on private property. However, individual homeowners can probably hire the same contractor at their expense to install the service from the municipal service to their property. So that's why they were probably working there. In my knowledge, as a matter of policy, local governments don't pay for utility services from the property line to the homes. There's municipal services come to the property line. It is the responsibility of the person receiving the service to pay for from the property line to their home.
And
But I didn't change the system.
it doesn't matter. This is
I think that does matter a lot.
Yes.
I would disagree with that situation. I was involved with that more than 50 years ago. A town got sewers and all the houses were on septic systems. The town had to pay for connections to the septic systems behind the houses.
I think that was in a different country. Am
Yes, I
correct?
know.
Yeah. So, Mr. Durrett, we thank you for your presentation. I do know that Mr. Dinwiddie, Director Moreira is here, and Mr. Amenko, and we certainly will continue to look at all of our water issues in town, and it's a very high priority to make sure that we have good water, safe water, and that you do not have to boil your water when you get this new connection. You should have good water, and at my house, where I do not have this yet, and we're hoping it will be the next area, I do have to boil my water. So people in the north end of town are lucky that they're getting this service.
Madam Mayor, this is one winter's deposit from well number 6. On top of my furnace, in the basement, I put a gallon of water in it every day, in the winter months. Feel how heavy it is.
Yes.
That is magnesium and manganese. That's not good for drinking water.
We agree, and we are dealing with manganese in our water systems.
And I'm afraid that this goes into the irrigation of the people that have up to now used lake water every year for 40 years, and now suddenly they get different water. Their nostrils are going to be clogged up.
So thank you very much for your presentation, and I think we will accept this as information. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Durrett. Do we have... Yes, we have one more, business number 1, and that would be 115th Street storm drainage, and that would be, I believe it's you, Mr. Dinwiddie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a bit of background, Mr. and Mrs. Lees have sent numerous letters and emails informing the town of Osoyoos about storm drain issues near their property at 11619 115th Street since 2017. The Operational Services Department installed 4 dry wells in front of the above-noted property approximately 5 to 7 years ago in an attempt to deal with this issue. Unfortunately, during heavy rainfall events or periods of extended wet weather, the existing dry wells cannot absorb enough water, and pools of rainwater do indeed form on 115th Street. As a bit of an overview, True Consulting has looked into this storm drainage problem on 115th Street and have determined that a contributing factor to rainwater pooling at this location is that drainage ditches once created to accommodate the storm flow have been filled in over the years. We don't really know by who or when, they just got filled in over the years. True Consulting recommend 2 possible solutions to this storm drainage problem, which are listed below. One is to reestablish the ditch system on the boulevards of 115th Street, which would then direct excess stormwater to larger drainage ditches on Highway 3. The estimated cost of this is about $35,000. Second option is to create a new storm sewer system on 115th Street, which would consist of new catch basins on both sides of the street tied together with appropriately sized piping, which would eventually discharge to the drainage ditches on Highway number 3. The estimated cost of this would be about $60,000. So these options were simply presented to Town Council for their information and some guidance as to how you would like to proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Amenko?
So, as the mayor's aware, we've had ongoing discussions with parties affected by this pooling of water during heavy periods of rain. So, in terms of due process, we've told them that this is not in this year's budget, and if council would like to consider changes to this year's capital budget to address this issue, that option is available to council. Also, whether or not this issue should be moved potentially to our business planning process for 2019, and then it would then be included potentially in our 5-year capital plan. So we're just looking for a direction relative to whether or not council would like us to consider some type of budget amendment to address this year, or move it to the business planning process for consideration in 2019 and beyond, or do we just say that the status quo is going to be maintained?
So can I ask, I believe the people who wrote the letter, the Lees, their pictures are in here. I think they had a plan to do some remediation on their own. Have they done that? Do we know, Mr. Dinwiddie, or?
Well, the Lees have kind of installed an illegal storm drainage system on their private property that discharges illegally to the ditch on Highway 3. I'm pretty sure the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure does not know that the Lees do that. So they've kind of done that on their own. Where their storm drainage current system is kind of quite far into their property, and they have installed a very small 4-inch catch basin, if you will, with a 4-inch pipe that discharges to the ditch. So they're not really catching the water that's pooling on 115th Street, they're catching the water that's pooling on their property.
Is that the only property, or are there several other properties that we just haven't heard of that have had
almost always
pooling?
it's in front of the Lees property. It does spread a little bit on either side to the neighboring properties, but for the most part, the puddle occurs in front of their driveway mostly.
I believe we start with the 2019 budget plans in August.
In August, that's right.
Is that correct?
I'd move it to our fall budget.
I think, are you okay with that too? It seems to me that that's probably, it's 2 months off, that's probably a good place to maybe have a look at it. I don't think, go ahead.
That business has been there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long, probably 20 years or better. And I'm just wondering about our bylaw with the property owner having care of, a certain portion of the property that, within the town, it's a sidewalk and a boulevard and all that kind of thing. And I'm not suggesting that they take care of this problem, but I'm wondering what happened to the ditch. Do we not have any? Because that's a very, very effective way of containing water.
It's unclear as to what has happened over the years with the ditches that were originally there on 115th Street. Well, over time, of course, silts and sands and stuff like that naturally build up in the ditches, and it could just be that we just never got around to cleaning them out like we should have over the years. And then it's also possible that people, because the ditch is an inconvenient thing to drive through to get in and out of your property, if they want to build a driveway and they don't put in a culvert underneath the ditch under the driveway, that causes some issues with drainage as well. So I know the property next door, the cardlock facility, has a very large driveway and stuff like that. That's probably blocking some water that was meant to get away. Like I said, it just could have filled up by silts and sands all by itself over time. We just didn't maintain it. So.
Yeah, I certainly support the fall budget process as being the most effective way of dealing with this.
So you would like two options, though, one for reestablishing the ditches and another one for actually building some sort of a mini storm drainage system down there? Because we can get two cost estimates. That's easy.
Yeah, I would think so.
And then you could decide later
I
in the
think
fall.
we need to look at both.
Okay. Because there is across the street, there's a large building now that never used to be there. That building, of course, sheds a lot of water, and so it pools on the other side of the street as well. Yeah. And there is no dry wells on the other side of the street, so an option would be put a couple of dry wells there, tie them all together, and then have them all discharged to the ditch. That may help.
Well, if this is going to be an ongoing issue,
only when it rains,
seems to be, then we probably should look at it.
Yeah. If it's dry, we're good.
Have we had, I think the pictures that were sent in were not from this year. I don't know whether there's a date on them, but I have seen them before.
I think that's actually a new set that was sent last year, sorry.
They are current? And do they, how long does it take for the water to dissipate when that happens?
It all depends on the weather. If it's hot, dry weather, it'll take probably less than a week. If the weather is cool and rainy, it takes a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
But at no point does the puddle actually obstruct the entrance into or out of the property. It's just kind of on either side of the entrance. So the people can still get in and out of the trailer business fine. It's just that there's a big puddle.
Okay. Okay, so are we good at bringing that up to thank you very much. And
Could we just get a resolution of direction to?
Yes.
To move this to the 2019 budget discussions?
I'll move
Jim,
that.
you're moving that. CJ seconding it. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And could we have a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting, please?
So moved.
1, 2, take your pick. All in favor? Thank you very much.